Hello and welcome to Investment Insight. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. Now let's break down what's happening in the markets today in a clear and simple way. I want you to imagine trying to insure $1 billion cargo ship right now.
Oh man, good luck.
Right. The Red Sea is basically choked off. The Strait of Hormuz is under constant threat. So the oceans, which are normally the cheapest highways for global trade, they are quite literally becoming uninsurable.
Yeah, the premiums are they're out of control.
Exactly. And that systemic panic is exactly why we are seeing this massive geopolitical chess move unfold. So looking at the data, on June 9, 2026, Saudi Arabia and Turkey signed memorandums of understanding, or MOUs, to cooperate on this massive cross-continental railway and logistics corridor.
Which is huge news.
It is. So our mission in this deep dive is to really understand the mechanics behind this proposed land corridor, like how bypassing these super dangerous oceans rewires global supply chains, and ultimately what all of this means for your portfolio.
Right, because, the execution risk on a project of this magnitude is, well, it's staggering. So as investors, we have to look past the political handshake of an MOU, right? We need to separate the hype from the reality of execution.
Yeah, because an MOU is really just a political signal. It's not active construction.
Exactly. Countries do not attempt to build, highly complex multinational rail networks across historically volatile regions unless the alternative is worse. And right now, the maritime alternative is degrading rapidly. The bottlenecks we rely on for global energy are just under unprecedented pressure.
Yeah, according to recent analysis, the timeline from early June paints a pretty stark picture. Like on June 8th, Houthi forces in Yemen announced a total ban on any Israel-linked ships passing through the Red Sea.
Right, which effectively chokes off one of the most vital arteries for East-West trade.
And then, literally 2 days later, on June 10th, Iran warned it might entirely close the Strait of Hormuz in response to U.S. attacks. They were openly threatening to fire on commercial vessels.
It's just a logistical nightmare.
But, I was looking at the market reaction to that specific window. On June 11th, President Trump actually canceled further airstrikes.
Right, which was a specific de-escalation.
Yeah, and that caused crude oil prices to temporarily drop. The market kind of breathed a sigh of relief.
Yeah.
But the underlying tension is still so intensely high. Liquefied natural gas carriers, LNG vessels, they are actually sailing dark right now.
Yeah, that is wild.
Wait, really? Just turning off their transponders?
Yeah, they are turning off their automatic identification system, their AI's transponders, just to sneak through the Strait of Hormuz. And to understand the gravity of that, you have to look at how maritime insurance and navigation actually work.
Okay, lay it out for us.
Well, an LNG carrier is essentially a massive floating thermos of highly explosive gas.
Wow. Okay, that sounds dangerous even on a good day.
Exactly. So navigating a narrow, congested waterway like the Strait of Hormuz blind, without broadcasting your position to other massive ships, is almost as dangerous as the missiles you were trying to hide from.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of the collision risk.
Right. It completely wrecks the actuarial models for marine insurance. Around 20% of the world's oil and gas passes through that specific strait. So when you introduce active war risks, and major players threaten to fire on commercial vessels, the war risk premiums assessed by London insurers jump from fractions of a percent to massive percentages of the ship's total hull value.
So we are talking about millions of dollars in extra costs for a single voyage.
Easily. Suddenly, the traditional economics of ocean freight just start breaking down entirely.
Which brings us to this concept in finance called option value.
Yes. A very important concept here.
So to put it in everyday terms, think of it like a daily commute. Normally you take the highway, which in this case is the ocean because it's cheap and it's fast.
Right.
But suddenly the highway is quite literally on fire.
Right.
So even if taking the back roads, like a massive railway, is more expensive or complicated, you desperately need it as a backup plan. You pay the premium just to have that option value. Precisely. In a perfectly peaceful world, putting 10,000 shipping containers on a megaship and floating them across the ocean will always be cheaper per unit than running them on a train.
Right, but we are not in a peaceful world right now.
No, we are not. When your primary supply chain is held hostage by geopolitics, having a stable land-based alternative is invaluable. This Saudi-Turkey railway is basically a multi-billion-dollar insurance policy for global trade.
So they are trying to institutionalize that option value. So if the sea lanes are permanently compromised, their economies don't just grind to a halt.
Exactly. And because Saudi Arabia recognizes the necessity of this option value, we have to look very closely at where they are choosing to put these tracks.
Yeah, the map is definitely changing.
It is. The geography of this proposed route reveals a massive, fundamental shift in Middle Eastern politics. To understand the new map, you have to look at the older plan it's quietly replacing.
You mean the IMEC plan?
Right. Back in 2023, there was this major international initiative called IMS, the India Middle East Europe Economic Corridor. And that plan relied heavily on moving goods from India into the Gulf, across Saudi Arabia, and then specifically out through Israel's deepwater port in Haifa.
Ah, okay. I'm looking at the recent data. The Gaza war basically froze the momentum for Saudi-Israel normalization.
Completely. Saudi Arabia likely won't push forward without a clear, credible path to a Palestinian state.
So that political red line creates a huge geographic vacuum. The new MOU outlines a railway that originates in Saudi Arabia, runs up through Jordan, straight through Syria, and into Turkey to reach Europe.
Right. It completely bypasses Israel.
Wait, so is the IMC route completely dead? And I mean, what does this mean for Israel's economy?
Well, IMEC isn't entirely dead, but the Middle East is shifting from a single monopolistic trade route, which is backed by the U.S. and Israel, to a competitive multi-corridor map.
This is about having options.
Exactly. Israel isn't completely isolated. I mean, it still has highly advanced tech sectors, modern deepwater ports, and tight security ties with the U.S., but from an economic leverage standpoint, they are losing their status as the essential must-have gateway.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you are the only toll bridge connecting two massive economies, you dictate the terms. But if someone builds a second bridge 10 miles away,
your pricing power collapses.
Right. So with Israel temporarily sidelined from this specific logistics web, who are the big winners here?
Turkey is thrilled. When the original IMS route was announced in 2023, Turkey was completely left out.
And they complained bitterly about that.
Oh, highly vocal about it. They argued that any Europe-bound trade route bypassing them was geographically unnatural. Now they are positioning themselves exactly where they want to be as the crucial gateway connecting the Middle East to Europe.
So Turkey secures a massive geopolitical win. And for Saudi Arabia, this perfectly aligns with their Vision 2030, right?
Yes. This rail corridor is the physical manifestation of their strategy to transition away from just oil. They want to be a global hub for logistics, tourism, and manufacturing.
But to be a logistics hub, you need land routes. You can't just rely on vulnerable coastal seaports.
Exactly. You need deep inland land corridors connecting your industrial zones to Europe.
Okay, but looking at the data here, there is an elephant in the room. This route goes straight through Syria.
Yes, it does.
I mean, we are talking about a nation isolated by over a decade of brutal civil war and heavy international sanctions. It's like buying a fixer-upper house, but it's in a very, very rough neighborhood.
That is a great way to put it.
The execution risk is off the charts. You need massive security, sanctions relief, funding. How do they actually pull that off?
Well, the Gulf states are actively attempting to change the reality on the ground in Syria by heavily financing reconstruction under the radar.
Really? How much are we talking?
Back in February 2026, Saudi Arabia quietly announced a $2 billion investment package specifically to support Syria's new leadership.
$2 billion. Wow.
And this wasn't just basic humanitarian aid. The capital was for developing the Aleppo airport, rebuilding national energy grids, and overhauling telecom infrastructure.
So they're essentially buying regional stability because, I mean, you need functioning energy grids to run modern electric rail, and you need telecom to manage digital logistics.
Right. And the diplomatic momentum is following the money. By April 2026, internal documents revealed that even the European Union was considering restoring relations and enhancing trade cooperation with Syria.
So everyone is just kind of agreeing to look past the history because they need the route?
Exactly. Europe needs goods from the Gulf without paying exorbitant war risk shipping premiums, and the Gulf needs European markets. Syria is just the unavoidable linchpin.
Okay, so let's say they actually pull this off. They stabilize Syria, they secure the borders, and they build this massive railway. Will a train really replace massive ocean cargo ships?
Not entirely. I mean, an ocean vessel can carry 20,000 shipping containers at a fraction of the cost of overland rail.
Right. It's like the difference between sending bulk toilet paper via cheap ground shipping versus, overnighting a critical life-saving medicine.
That is exactly it.
You only pay the premium for speed and reliability when the item is highly valuable. So bulk goods like crude oil, grain, and iron ore, they will stay on ships because it's just too expensive to put them on trains.
Exactly. This new railway will be reserved for premium, time-sensitive, or strategic goods. We are talking semiconductor equipment, defense parts, pharmaceuticals, and high-end electronics.
Right, because if you own an American manufacturing plant and you are waiting on a $50 million shipment of microchips, you can't afford a 4-week delay going around Africa.
You would bleed millions in lost revenue. In that scenario, paying 5 times the normal freight cost to put those chips on a high-speed train is an absolute bargain.
Right, you pay the premium to unlock your capital faster.
But here is the hidden challenge. The real hurdle isn't laying the steel tracks, it's the bureaucracy.
Ah, customs.
Right. If a train gets stuck at 4 different borders because of manual customs paperwork, it loses its speed advantage entirely. The success of this route relies entirely on digital customs integration.
So they need, like, seamless border security and data sharing.
Unprecedented data sharing. Turkish officials have to explicitly trust the digital security scans conducted by Syrian officials hundreds of miles away.
Which is a monumental diplomatic hurdle. So bringing this all back to the listener, what does this mean for the everyday investor trying to make sense of their portfolio? How do you actually act on this information?
Well, based on the data, there are a few specific sectors impacted. First, infrastructure. We are looking at a much longer investment cycle for construction, engineering, and logistics real estate.
Like the massive automated warehouses at every junction.
Exactly. Then you have Turkey. Huge geopolitical upside, but heavily discounted right now due to currency volatility and inflation risks.
Right. You have to balance that geopolitical win against their macroeconomic reality. What about Saudi Arabia?
Strong non-oil growth narrative with Vision 2030, but ironically, they are still fundamentally tethered to oil prices. They need high oil revenues to fund these mega projects.
And then, of course, the shipping and insurance sectors are dealing with permanently elevated risk premiums because of the ongoing sea risks.
Exactly. It drastically alters their pricing power.
Okay, let's unpack this. If I'm looking at this trend, I shouldn't just be looking for train stocks, right? I should be looking for the companies selling the shovels and shields for this mega project.
Yes. The immediate winners aren't just rail companies. The real opportunities are in logistics centers, digital border systems, and defense contractors.
The shields.
Right. Because this route passes through highly volatile areas, there will be massive demand for drone defense, surveillance radars, and elite cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. To protect the cargo.
Well, to protect the digital manifests and the blockchain customs networks, protecting that data from state-sponsored hackers is just as critical as protecting the physical cargo from armed militias.
Wow. So you are basically investing in the creation of a secure, digitized bubble.
Precisely. The physical steel is only half the project.
It is so fascinating to step back and look at the broader historical shift here. I mean, the Middle East is really transitioning from the era of oil pipelines to this new era of multi-corridor logistics competition.
It is. And if you project that trend forward, I'll leave you with this final thought. For centuries, global superpowers have built massive naval fleets specifically to protect sea lanes, right?
Right.
Control the oceans, you control trade.
Right. The Navy is basically the security guard for the global supply chain.
But if the future of premium global trade shifts to land corridors and digital borders to avoid these maritime choke points, the metrics of power change. Will the next era of global dominance be defined not by who controls the oceans, but by who controls the railways, the logistics hubs, and the checkpoints?
That is a staggering thought. The idea that the ultimate leverage over global trade might shift from the open water to land-based digital corridors completely redraws the strategic map. Well, lots to mull over today as these developments continue to unfold. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button.